to Our Galactic Family. I'm Graham Douillet. My guest today is Dr. Suzanne Lee. Dr. Lee is an international multidimensional author of several books under the pen name Suzanne Carroll. She is a psychotherapist, artist, and channel specializing in helping others to connect with their multidimensional selves. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Well, today I wanted to spend some time getting to know about the Arcturians, whom you channel, who they are, where they're from, their important role right now with the ascension of Earth and humanity. And we have a special treat for our listeners toward the end of the show. Dr. Carroll will be providing an opportunity to channel from the Arcturian, so that's most welcome. Now, you're Arcturian, correct?
Yes, in a higher frequency of myself.
When did you become conscious of that?
When did I become? Well, the first transmission that I got from them was early 90s, like 92, 93. And I was just starting to work on my website, collecting the information for it. And there was this one particular process that's in the beginning of my website about going through a vortex, and then when you get to the vortex, you put your hands on this membrane, and then this vortex opens, and then Arcturus came forward. Now, I had studied through the whole Rosicrucian and Saint Germain and all of that, and so Arcturus is the Elohim for the seventh ray of transmutation. So I just assumed that it was Arcturus. I didn't know for a while that there were Arcturians. But then they started coming into my reality more, and they're the reason why I did the website. They literally nagged me for 2 years to do a website. Just do a website, do a website, do a website. Well, no, I can't. I can't be weird in public. What if they know who I am? You know, I'll lose my clients. People will burn me at the stake. I mean, I really went there. And then once I got the website started, I started communicating with some others. I actually went through this process of meeting quite a few fifth-dimensional aspects of myself, an Arcturian aspect and a Palladian aspect and a Syrian aspect. And as I went through all of these aspects, then I was like ready for the Arcturians, if that makes sense. I had to kind of go up the vibrational ladder, so to speak. And then we just started communicating.
The Arcturians are one of the most advanced galactic families, is that right?
Yes, they are. They're
so
one
when
of the
you're
oldest.
saying going up the vibrational ladder, it's eventually coming to a higher dimensional state, experiencing being Arcturian.
Yes, and also most of my communications is with the group mind from like the 8th to the 10th dimension. So I had to kind of move through these other dimensions to get my consciousness. Not everyone has to go through things in this fashion, but I'm a Capricorn, and it was early on. It was the early 90s. It was dark, and then we went through 9/11. So everything was under the hush-hush then. And things were much slower. Now people awaken and bang, they're awake because the energy is so strong and it's so much freer.
Now, Arcturus is a star like the sun, right?
Yes.
And we can see it with our own eyes at night, right?
Yes, we can. It's not that far in the sky from like Orion.
Are the Arcturians the most advanced?
That's what I've heard, that they are... well, see, their job, you're probably going to ask me this question, this is the easiest way to answer that question, is that the Arcturians that I'm communicating with, they have not been planetary bound for aeons and aeons. They describe our planetary life like a womb. And once the civilization is advanced enough, it breaks out of its womb, and then the next womb is its galaxy. And they long ago broke out of their womb, and there are planets, and they can visit some of their planets. But at least the Arcturians that I've primarily communicated with live in form. They don't even particularly live in a starship. However, because they are more in a state of pure energy, but there are many Arcturians that are resonating to, I think, the fifth and sixth dimension, primarily to assist with the ascension. It's kind of a sacrifice for them.
So the beings that you're working with are light bound, and what I'm hearing is that there are different dimensional levels of Arcturians, and lower level Arcturians may reside on planet, but higher dimensional level Arcturians are pure light bound, pure consciousness.
Right. And I think they're all pure consciousness, but they can play around with having a body if they feel like it. And actually there's a lot of them that are playing around with having our bodies. And so there's a lot of, that's why there's so many people that are channeling the Arcturian. And I'm sure they're all Arcturians that have decided to take on a form now.
The Arcturians, correct me if I don't have this right, but I understand that they went through the ascension process eons ago, like we're going through now, and their specific role, well, among many, is to assist Earth, assist humanity in this process. And the portal that is within the Arcturian sector is instrumental in that process, from going from a lower level third dimension state to fifth and above. Is that right?
Yes, and on my site I have the Arcturian portal, I think 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, where they take us through the portal.
Could you go through the different stages of the different dimensional stages, starting with the third and perhaps bringing us through the fifth? And what, if you were to assign a description to them and what the experience might be like, what would that look like? Like, for example, the fourth is their sleep state, right? And astral travel? Okay.
Yes. And there's subplanes in the fourth. I'll talk about those. And the best way to experience it is, to explain it, is to talk about how we perceive it, or how I've perceived it, how most people, I think, perceive it. But we all know how we perceive the third dimension. And we know that there's a lot of density and a lot of separation, and there's a lot of fear, and there's large polarities. When we go into the lower astral, that's the fourth dimension is kind of like an ocean, and the lowest frequency, which is the lower astral, is like the bottom of the ocean, and that's where all the density is, and that's where all of the negativity that humanity has put into Gaia's aura is sitting. And so one of the important parts about moving through the lower astral, which is not fun because it's like where you have nightmares, a lot of very psychic children or children that are coming in awake have a lot of night terrors because they're moving through. I did that too. And I had to learn how to control my mind as a child so that the monsters wouldn't get me because it was very scary there. And then we move into what I call the land of fairy. And we've had these in this is the mythology land where there's unicorns and fairies and angels and princes. And there's still polarity, but not as much. And the manifestation is very quick. If you think, wow, I'm thirsty, then right there you discover something to drink. So it's the beginning of the learning about being a master over your thoughts and emotions that prepare you for the fifth dimension. So then after fairy, there's the emotional realm, and we perceive the emotional realm as very often we have dreams of very bright colors. The forms are a little more oblique and wavering, but they're still forms. Then we move into the mental plane, and it's lighter, more pastel. This is how I experience it. And sort of you see like the matrix inside of the form. And then there's the causal plane, which there is even less form and less polarity. And this is really where we learn about cause and effect, or energy out is energy back. And then there's a spiritual subplane, which is where our I am presence is. And our I am presence is the highest expression of our fourth dimensional self. And our I am presence is able then to carry our consciousness into the fifth dimension. And as we leave that spiritual plane, what I've experienced is that we go into the void. And when we go into the void, our experience is basically of nothing, except for we are a speck of light. And we are having that first experience of being pure consciousness, which is unusual because we're used to being encompassed by some sort of form.
Mm-hmm.
But the trip through the fourth dimension allows us to have looser and looser descriptions of form, so therefore we can have that experience of being a speck of light. And then that speck of light gradually makes its way until you can see the threshold world of the fifth dimension. And then usually we go into a violet temple. In fact, there is a violet temple of transmutation, etheric, on the threshold of every dimension. And we go there in our night bodies to learn. And then after I got there, I moved a bit into the mid-fifth dimension, where every thought and feeling is instantly manifest. And then they put me to work, and then I just started writing everything.
And that's where we're headed. That's where Earth, Gaia, that's where humanity, beings on Earth are headed.
Earth, I understand, is a bit of a kingpin. You know, this was the greatest experience because it had the greatest polarity of many worlded, inhabited societies. It was always a schoolroom, and, Gaia invited many beings to be there. There was early civilizations here long before what our current history speaks of. And the Palladians lived here for a while, the Arcturians lived here for a while, the Syrians lived here for a while. I think the Andromedans kicked in, and the Alpha Centaurians lived here for a while. So a lot of beings came here. They went through a lot of the same things that we are going through. And part of it is that they are our ancestors. And so therefore, when we talk about the Galactic Federation, those are our ancestors who have fully evolved into the fifth dimension and beyond. And so it's not like we're getting some total stranger to come help us. These are our ancestors, and they're not just here to help us. They're here to help Gaia because Gaia provided them with a format that they could evolve on, and they did their damage to her as well. And then she had to clean up their mess, and then she got ready and invited somebody else. And now she's ready to go home too.
What can you say about the Galactic Wars? I appreciate what you're speaking to because a lot of our galactic brothers and sisters, to your point, have gone through this process, have worked through 3D behaviors, experiences, paradigms. They are much more evolved. They are teaching us how to move through this period. But they had their challenges too, and they had their conflict, they had their wars.
Yes, I learned kind of firsthand about the Galactic Wars. For a while, I think it was in the mid-90s, I was very much in touch with my Antarean self. Antares is a huge planet. If you look on those comparison charts, it's huge. And it is in the constellation of Scorpio, I believe. And it was kind of positioned in between the service to self beings and the service to others beings. And the service to self beings were usually some form of evolution from the lizard people or the dragon people. And they bred their young through eggs, And so they laid the eggs and then they left. And whatever eggs hatched was culled the herd, so to speak, and then the eggs that the babies that were the most vicious survived, and they worked their way up. And so the whole society was based on that. And it's easy for us to look and say, well, that's really a bad thing. But I have experienced being a draconian, and there's many draconians that are ascended now that have actually moved into the fifth dimension. But during the Galactic Wars, which went on for millions of years, and I heard people, I just read something a little while ago that there was, some finishing up that needed to happen. But the major Galactic War was completed quite a while ago, except that Earth was such a new planet, and there were still so many of the first beings, the draconians, the Lizzie, those that came from that lizard race, and they had the service to self. And they were actually a lot of the force of destruction that has been happening on our world, and that has, been that 1% that we're so concerned about.
What is the status of the draconian race here on Earth?
Well, it's interesting because a great deal of the draconians, they've moved on, and the Federation has said, leave these guys alone now. I think it was 1992. They said, that's enough. Let Earth deal with it. And so the draconians that were still the negative draconians left. So the support team to the grounded draconians left. But the ones that were still here, and they were in positions of power. And they were in Middle Earth, in the military, where they're doing all those fun things. And so, therefore, they were still alive and well. So even though the intergalactic intervention was gone, we still had our own issues right here. So the Galactic War kind of became our planetary issue.
The draconians, there is a contingent of them here on Earth that are not in service to in service to others. They're in service to self. They're assuming power, 3D positions, but they won't be able to survive here as the vibrational level increases.
Right. And a lot of them are being taken out by the Galactic Federation.
That's happening currently, right?
Yes. That's what I hear.
The pending arrests, I keep hearing more and more about that. So this seems to be the population that we're talking about now.
Yes, I think. And what I just received a little while ago, which I already knew, but I received it in new, clearer fashion, that the draconians, they were actually in Atlantis. There was like the light robes and the dark robes and the in-between robes. And the dark robes were the sons of Biel, B-I-E-L, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. And thanks to their militaristic manners, which they are still living, Atlantis fell. And it was supposed to be that was like a rehearsal ascension, because it was like 13,000 years ago. We were like, say at the back door, so to speak, of where we are now. And we were supposed to have 13,000 years to prepare for a planetary ascension. But what happened instead is we went into dark times. They just got darker and darker and darker until the last 2,000 years of the Kali Yuga, which has been immensely dark. And we are a strong group of people because we survived.
What you said, I think, is really important, that there are different extraterrestrial races. And you mentioned the draconians. I'm thinking about the Greys or the Zetas. And there are different vibrational states or levels of these races. So in the same with Arcturians, it sounds like, although they sound much more evolved. But just zeroing in on the Draconians and the Zetas, for example, it sounds like there are still lower level beings within these races that haven't quite evolved yet, but there are also very ascended light beings. So there are high dimensional level Draconians, high dimensional level Zeta or Greys. Is that your understanding as well?
I don't know about any. I'm not sure about the Greys because the Greys are cloned, and they destroyed their world, and much as we almost destroyed our own, and they had to go underground to live. You probably noticed this, but maybe some people don't. And so they became sterile, so they had to clone themselves. And they figured that it was their emotions that had caused the problem, so they cloned out emotion. And so emotion is really how we ascend, because love is an emotion, and unconditional love is how we ascend. And so they kind of have themselves in a problem. But they are time travelers. And so probably however they get out of it is they will travel to some other time. I don't know. I think, now this sounds a little worldly, well, my experience, I'll tell you, I was abducted as a child, and I do remember that we went to this learning tree while we were waiting. And in the learning tree, it just showed us many, many, many things, which I couldn't even begin to encompass at the time. But there was this one Zeta that came to get me, and some of the Zetas kind of, it's like they develop love somehow. And so, you know, if they can, then maybe the Zetas will be able to make it.
Well, what you're saying is consistent with a recent guest that I had on the show, Judy Carroll, who's in Australia, and she describes herself as a Zeta, which is incarnated on Earth, and she's at a level where she is pure light consciousness, unity consciousness, and is here assisting with her other star brothers and sisters and her Zeta family on individual levels to help with the ascension process. And so what I'm getting is that there are various races, and within those races there are various vibrational states. So it sounds like that's what you know of the Draconian. So what was your personal experience being a Draconian?
Well, first off, I kind of got the storyline about what it was, and just in brief, what the storyline was is that they came to experiment, and they started off with these huge beings. And they discovered that huge beings wasn't a very good idea because it was hard to move them around. And when the planet was having its problem, then they could take some of the people off, but they couldn't take the huge ones, so they became extinct. And then others went underground to live. And what I experienced is that some, especially there are Draconians that have wings and long tails, and they are the ones that lived underground. And even when they went back to Betelgeuse, which was mostly their home world, they had lived underground on Earth too long, and they had these kind of iridescent scales, and they were highly prejudiced against because they weren't killers. And so they had to, again, hide. And as they were deep in the water, they began to evolve, and they began to emanate their own light because, you know, beings that live in dark emanate their own light. And as they emanated their own light, it began to change themselves, and then they actually finally got to this place where they really reached out for help, and then the Arcturians came, and the Arcturians assisted them. And the experience that I have had of being a Draconian, actually serving on a starship, is, well, I enjoy this person very much. The Draconians, they are very, very, very intelligent. In terms of pure intelligence, they are the most intelligent in terms of like left brain, you know, and alchemical and metaphysical, very intelligent. They have a fantastic sense of humor. It's so fun to laugh with them. And they're very wise. So it's kind of like we can't just judge somebody just like here. We can't, oh, you're from that race or you're from that species. No, everyone has a chance, whatever their species, to turn to the light and evolve to their higher frequency, and lots of them have.
So you served on a ship?
Yes. When I first had my awakening way back in the early 70s, I was, like I said, I was working with the Ascended Masters and such, and I said, I want to work with a woman. I'm a woman. Enough of male power. They didn't even have female power. I wouldn't know what that meant. And so who came in was polyethylene. And so I worked all these years with Athena. And then I find out that I was on the starship Athena, which was an Arcturian starship. And I thought, okay. So then it kind of fit. And I have actually had, and I document everything. So I have documented that. And I've had those experiences. And being on the starship is so communal, and the starship is alive. And like if you were to go over to the starship and you touch the wall, you know everything that everyone in the starship knows. You know everything that the starship knows. It's complete unity. And when we visit, we go into these regeneration chambers. And so the first time I went there, I went into the regeneration chamber, and it just threw me for a loop. I couldn't go back for ages because I had to integrate this regeneration. I think we are expecting to experience the higher worlds in the same way as we experience the physical world, where there's hard edges. You touch something and you're on the edge of it, and it doesn't move, and it's hard and it's separate. But when you move into the higher dimensions, things aren't hard and things aren't separate, because we can see all the molecules that interact. And when we touch something, we can touch the very edge of the aura, the middle of the aura. We can go into the matrix, the form. So everything is very mobile, and things are very light. They're very pastel, and they're very flowing, and they kind of blink in and out sometimes.
If I were to go to Arcturus right now, what might I experience in terms of communities and what Arcturians look like and how they live and family units and what they do, and and this is with the assumption that they're assuming form on a fifth dimensional state.
Yes. I did have some experience of that long ago, which was then validated many years later by somebody else very similar. But when they are enjoying the experience of living on the planet, visiting or living, they live in pods, much like the cetaceans have pods. And the pods are like of 39 to 40 people. And within the pod, they live within a complete unity consciousness, and it is very fifth dimensional. So if they as a unit decide that they would like to experience day, then it is day, and when they as a unity consciousness decide they'd like to experience evening, it's evening. If they experience they would like to have the camaraderie of a meal, they sit down and there's a meal before them. And when they feel like they have completed that experience, they give their thanks and blessings, and the meal is gone, and they do whatever. There's no work, there's no money, there's no separation. No one is better or worse. There isn't any kind of a hierarchical scale.
And what would the forms look like, the Arcturian form look like?
The closest I had as a form is a couple times when they came to me kind of like a cloud form, like there's a round thing for a head, and there's things that go out for arms and something like a body and something like legs, vaguely humanoid, but it's kind of translucent, transparent, and the head is much larger than ours, and their size is kind of dependent on where I'm at. If I'm sitting, their size is small. If I'm standing, their size is bigger. They kind of gauge their size to whatever is comfortable for me. And one time I was at the beach meditating, and one came right up and said, I want to show you what it's like to ascend. And then he went into as much of a form, it looks almost like a zeta, but not like a zeta. In other words, that white see-through type things. And then it blasted into a blast of light. It's like, like, yeah, that's good. I like that. So, and when I looked at them in the pod, it was that kind of almost an amorphic form, because it's not necessary. They don't need the form at all. They don't have to feed the form. They don't need to use the form to lift things. They don't need to give birth from their form. It's just like we would decide, I'm going to put on jeans now, or now I'm going to put a robe on. They decide, okay, let's put on a form for a while just because it's kind of a cool experience.
Right. They assume form as needed, and they can manipulate matter, so they can assume whatever body or form they want to. So it makes sense that people might experience them in different ways.
Yes, I've read different places where different people have experienced Arcturians in different ways. And basically what I have understood is that they don't want to scare us. So they are, and of course they read us, every bit of us that we have. And so if we have any kind of an expectation of how we need them to look, they'll be very happy to take that on, because then we'll feel comfortable and we won't be startled or frightened by their appearance.
Getting into the ascension process in terms of what one might expect, again, it could be very individualistic. And in thinking about what the new world would look like, my understanding is that if I was enjoying something, whatever that may be, it might be an item, it might be a home, I can recreate that in the new dimension, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because our love force is the core of our creativity. And so things that we love that bring us comfort, it's like if we move, and let's say we're going to move to Europe or something, so you can only bring a few treasured things because you're going far away, then you would take your favorite things with you because they make you feel secure and comfortable. We're going into a completely different reality, but we don't have to pack it in a suitcase. So we can recreate it. I mean, I love my house. I adore my yard. I love my walk to the beach, and I love the ocean. I'm gone for that. I want to put all that there until I get used to it. Then I'll see what's next.
We could spend a whole week on the ascension process, of course, but what do you think is important for folks to, on a practical level, know about the ascension process and what to expect, especially as things are building closer to December?
Well, I don't want to get religious here, but I just want to talk about Jesus, whether it's a holographic insert or the bringer of a religion. But it was a storyline of our process. And our process is that we are born and we grow up, and then we have to go away into ourselves, and we have to learn, and we have many initiations that we have to go through. And all of these initiations are, I choose love over fear, I choose love over fear, I choose truth over illusion, I choose truth over illusion. And then just when we think that we've got it all figured out, then, something happens, and we have what's kind of called our final initiation. And this is where we have to really look inside of ourselves and look at any component of our being that is unable to make that shift. And then we have to unconditionally love ourselves, and we have to unconditionally love those components of ourself, because unconditional love, forgive them, Lord, they don't know what they do. Unconditional love is the the format, is the burst of energy that allows us to move into a higher frequency. And so as we love ourselves, then we can love these components of ourselves free, and so that they are no longer cumbersome, they're no longer standing in our way. And as soon as we learn something, we share it. And sharing. And I think I have a little banner that I put all over the place called, make ascension normal. And, I grew up where I was born in 1947, so there was most of my life, this was really, you never want to say a word about any of these things that were going on with me.
Yeah.
And it's like in the loony bin for sure. So now it is so wonderful. All of my clients are people that there's a few, but almost all of my clients are people I could be open with. Most of my clients I get, off the website anyhow, so they already know who I am. And if all of us just start talking and start saying, wow, I saw an angel today in my dream, and it was really cool. You saw an angel in your dream. Are you crazy? Oh, no, it was really nice. You want me to tell you about it?
Casual conversations.
Yes, make those kinds of conversations normal. And that would so dissipate the fear of other people. And
so what do you tell your clients that they might expect with the ascension process?
I don't really tell anybody what they might expect. What I tell them is that we are creating our ascension process for every thought, our every emotion, our every reaction, and our every decision. And every time we choose a fear-based energy field, we lower our frequency and belay our progress. And then we have to remember to love ourselves and forgive ourselves so that we can return to having our thoughts, our emotions, our reactions being love-based. And it's a challenge. I am definitely not a master of that. I mean, I get angry, I get scared, I do all those human things. And I think as long as we have this earth vessel around us, and as long as there's the darkness and the bills to pay and the traffic to drive in, all those types of things, we're going to have this challenge. But what I say, probably I wrote the whole thing about that journal from the person from New Earth, and now I've got these transmissions from home, which is like the next octave of that. So kind of how it is with me is that my information comes into where I am, and then when I catch up with myself, then I get more information. And that's one of the main things I say to people, is that you can't get spiritual indigestion. You have to make sure that you can integrate and ground what you've received so far. Because if too much comes in, then you get afraid and you get confused.
Staying in the love, staying out of the fear, that's the key.
And the last one that I got last night, staying in the now.
Mm-hmm.
And the main thing that I'm hearing now is we have to release our addiction and our habit to the third dimensional world. Mm-hmm. Because, we perceive what we're used to perceiving. And New Earth is right here. It's right here. It's just a few frequencies up. But we can't see it all the time. But I have had some experiences of seeing it, working with groups and raising the energy, and it's wow. We have to release that habit of having things be separate and having things be not connected and having things be alive and having things be a thing and having that be an animal and all hierarchical thinking. And then also all separation thinking, all third-dimensional thinking. And that's what the Arcturians are telling me a lot. They're helping us to activate that latent 97% that was called junk DNA. Okay, that is our multidimensional operating system. That's our light body. And so as the higher light, the higher frequencies of light. The Russians have done a lot of research on the 97%, and it not only is it only receptive to very high frequency light, with high frequency light on it, it becomes a portal. They've done the DNA. They take people's DNA in the other room and they show a picture that's frightening. Instantly, the DNA shrinks. They show a picture of love. Instantly, the DNA, ta-da, it's happy. They can take that on the moon. It would still be instant. And so what they found is that these are wormholes. They are light-receptive portals. And our body is filled with light-receptive portals. So we are learning how to open these portals.
Before we connect with your Arcturian family, I wanted to just regroup back to the Galactic Wars for the purposes of helping us to understand our history, where we've been, perhaps more so with our star brothers and sisters and their history and where they've been. They have perspective. They've been where we've been. What do you know about the Galactic Wars, and what do you think is important for us as we think about our star brothers and sisters' history?
Well, I think the main thing that I personally get through my Arcturian connection is that which you judge, you become. And a war is based on separation. And the war continued as long as the light thought it had to battle the dark, because the dark likes to battle. And so when they thought they were overwhelming the dark or winning the dark, they were actually feeding the dark.
Was the issue about control over planetary bodies, specific planets?
There was definitely a time frame, especially back in the early times of it, where it was just like our battles, only, blowing up a bunch of innocent people and destroying worlds and all that horrible stuff. But with the Arcturians, they what I got from that, they were one of the lead-ins. They were like the Marines. They were the frontliners. But they had a very multidimensional culture. And so they all gave like 20 years of service on the third, fourth dimension, actually on the third dimension, where they actually had the battle. And then they moved into the fourth dimension where they had families. But when they had families, they met their divine complement and they studied in the temples and they raised their consciousness all the way up to the oversoul in the seventh dimension and invited a soul from their soul family to join them, and then they guarded this little life stream all the way down until it was adult. And then they were in the fourth dimension some, and then they had that cycle that was going on. So they had that battle, but the battle wasn't all-encompassing. That was like a service. And the other part of their reality was completely not in the battle at all, because it was in a frequency above the battle. And what most of the planets, the Pleiades and Sirius and Andromeda and Arcturus, long, long ago, realized that if you're on a beautiful boat at the top of the ocean, the monsters at the bottom of the ocean can't touch you. So if our frequency is higher than that which would do us harm, then that can't do us harm because it cannot even perceive us. For a long time, the darkness, the service to self was winning. And then finally the service over others began to win more and more, and then it was finally encapsulated into this one area on Orion with the Draconians primarily. And then eventually that was pretty much taken over. So it was to my understanding that the Galactic War is over, and they're now cleaning up the mess. And Earth is one of the messes because there's a lot of shrapnel. There's been a lot of people that were left abandoned here. And supposedly we have 13,000 years to prepare for this planetary ascension. But we didn't. We've had, maybe a few. I mean, it hasn't started getting light, a year ago? I don't know. It hasn't been very long, has it?
Well, it's building quickly.
Recent.
I know that.
Yeah, it's very soon. But see, light progresses, exponentially. So at first it's really slow. 2 and 2 is 4. 4 and 4 is 8. 8 and 8 is 16. But then you get 1 million.
Yeah.
So we've got to the exponential part. And so it's down to like that final 3%. It's like, when you download programs, how it gets to 97% and then it sits there for a long time. It's like, what is going on with that final 3%?
Sure, yeah.
That's the way it is with everything. And we are in that final 3% right now. I mean, we're just, but I think that everything's just going to start happening very quickly now. For those who can perceive it. And I think that's a really important disclaimer, because if we ask, okay, so did you see it? Did you see it? Did you see it? A lot of people can say, no, you're crazy. What do you mean? No. Don't ask other people. You have to ask inside yourself, because we are the vanguard. We are the way showers. And so it's important that all of us begin to enter groups where we can be open and honest about the marvelous perceptions. And I have heard the most amazing stories of people like waking up in a minute. It's taken me like 40 years, And so we have to kind of insulate ourselves, because someone has to. We're the Marines, so to speak. We're the first ones in, and then as the first ones come in and make it more believable, then other people are going to be able to say, yeah, okay. Plus, meanwhile, the light is increasing and the darkness is decreasing. So it's going to get easier and easier to awaken.
And that is welcomed.
Yes, very welcomed.
Well, shall we bring them on?
Yes, okay. Okay, I'm going to calibrate myself for a moment here. Oh, we are so joyous to join your show. Thank you so much for allowing us to speak directly with you and with
Welcome.
everyone who will ever hear it. We have told Suzanne and you that we wish to speak. We wish to speak to our beautiful ascending ones and say, thank you so very much. We wish to send you our unconditional love into every cell and atom of your ever-transmuting form. And we wish to send you our deep gratitude. We also want to tell you to please trust your instincts, trust your imagination, and listen to your dreams. We of the Galactic Federation are speaking to so many of you. In fact, many of you that we are speaking to you have a form in our Galactic Federation. We wish for you to remember that you are the planet, that you are a beautiful multidimensional being, and the primary component of you is that you have come for planetary ascension. when I speak, especially as the beings that are here in Arcturian form, we remind each of you that you have long since embraced your planetary consciousness when you ascended beyond your planetary womb on your different planets in the Arcturian system. We ask you now to remember how that felt. All of you who are listening to this, and we say this clearly, meaning it totally, all of you who are listening to this have had at least one experience of personal ascension in at least one of your myriad realities and all the myriad dimensions, planets, and galaxies. Allow yourself to remember how that felt. Remember how it felt to look around your reality and realize that it wasn't quite a fit any longer. That it was beginning to feel a bit foreign. It was beginning to constrict you. And you were feeling like you no longer wished to obey the rules, the confines, the limitations, and the regulations that polarized reality was offering to you as structure. For you were realizing that there was another structure, and that structure was within your heart. That structure was within your mind and within your consciousness. Remember how it felt when you had to be consciously aware to stay inside of your body so that you wouldn't fly out of it. Remember how it felt as your light body inside began to pulsate and grow and wish to expand beyond the confines of your skin. Remember how it felt when you looked into another and you saw yourself, and you know that as they looked into you, they saw their self. Remember how the depths of unity consciousness began to fill your heart and encourage your mind to be free and open and to be exactly who you are with no constraint, with no limitation, and most important, with no fear. We encourage all of you to call upon us, for we are overshadowing you all. Feel us as we stand behind you. And since we are formless, we can be behind every 7 billion of you with no problem at all. And as you look into the eyes of many that you love and care for, you see that there is more than there was ever before. And when you see that in your loved ones, give them their love and tell them, I too am changing. I see it in your eyes. I see it in your aura. I see that you are opening and you are returning to yourself. If you look slightly above their heads and you see that there is a bit of what appears to be a short circuit between what they are receiving and what they can encompass, this is not a person with whom you can share, for it would frighten them. And the last thing we want to do is to frighten anyone. But with your higher vision, you can look and you can see those who are awakening because you see their aura rising, you see their connection, and you see them grounded to the earth. And move forward and begin a conversation with them. Be honest with them. Tell them, isn't this a wonderful time? Fill it with love. be happy, be joyous. Think of the myriad incarnations that you have prepared for this moment. Go into your high heart of your threefold flame of wisdom, power, and love, and remember everything that you have learned in all of your earthly incarnations. Remember everything that you have learned in all of your multidimensional incarnations. And then just file it. File it in the part of your brain that has been empty. File it in your 97% DNA and the 95% of your unused cortex, and in your high heart, which is your portal to infinity. If ever you need us, touch your high heart with both hands and remember love. Blessings. We are so proud of all of you, and we will so happily and joyfully give you a hand up and pull you into New Earth.
Thank you. What do you think is important for people to know about our star brothers and sisters during this significant time right now?
They're our friends. They're our guides, they're our leaders, and most important, they're us. They are higher frequencies of us. They do not see us as children. They do not see us as underlings or inferiors in any way, shape, or form. They see us as the most amazing. They see us with such pride that somehow their descendants were able to stay awake and to transform their realities and stick to their truth in the midst of such fear and adversity that we have come through. They are so joyous and so proud of us, and they have our back completely. These are our best friends.
Exciting times. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you. It was wonderful.
You've been listening to Dr. Suzanne Lee. You can learn more about her work and her books at SuzanneLeePhD.com.
And also, most of my information and most of my books are at www.multidimensions.com, MULTIDIMENSIONS.
Terrific. Well, thank you for your time, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
This is Thank You White Knights, and I hope you enjoyed this video. For updates and to go to the source of this article, please find the link below the YouTube screen while watching in YouTube. For the latest news and updates, please visit thankyouwhiteknights.com.